big possessions. Okay, so he's
Hi, buddy.
Is that you or Brad?
That's Brad. I'm just reading tweets.
Yeah, Jimmy, you know we're live, right?
Oh, we're already live.
Yeah. During
John,
that
I
whole
can't hear you.
during the reading of the post game, we're live.
Hey, it's informative. We get the people. We get the people that knowledge.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you might have to jump out. You can't hear John.
I can't hear John right off the top. I can't hear him.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
All right. We're already down a man, Jimmy. We can't live with this.
All right, John versus Bobby. Let's do this. This is the two sides of the spectrum.
I know, two sides of the coin. We're gonna be on the same page with some of the stuff tonight because there was some atrocious things, but people are kind of clicking in here. Celtics lose, second time in 2 nights to Philly. Not a huge surprise, and it's not in an excuse-making sort of way. But we're waiting for Jimmy to jump back in. We'll get started. No Jason Tatum for a second night in a row. They lose. Let's bring in Jimmy. Jimmy, what do you say, buddy?
You got us, Jimmy?
No, I don't.
All right. Let's
Anyway,
get it started.
So lose for a second straight night. We'll wait for Jimmy to come in before we get into the meat of it. Lot to talk about tonight. There's some good, some bad. Jaylen Brown, an awesome game. We'll get into him. And again, there's a lot to talk about with Jaylen because, again, he just continues to impress. Peyton Pritchard hurt. That's bad. We'll see how bad he's hurt, but I mean, he went out immediately, and that meant more Jeff Teague minutes, and nobody likes that. And just a whole bunch of frustrating little things to talk about. So, Bobby, just your opening thoughts on the game. And we all watched it. I'm gonna get at Marcus a little bit again here for the down the stretch stuff there. Just inexcusable lapses left and right that really really hurt him. But we could start with that, or you can go in any direction you want. But that's where I'm going to go.
I'm going to go there too. The turnover. That was the play. You look at 4:20 left. You're down 6.
Yeah.
And Simmons had just gone and 1, and you let him run the other way for 2 and essentially end the game there with a lazy pass.
It's more than that, though. Before that, he's got they're down. He could have cut the lead to 2 on that nice cut where he has a layup, and then he turns a layup into a 10 out of 10 degree of difficulty sort of shot. Okay. And then they go the other way and they knock down a 3. That was a 5-point swing right there. I mean, just a disaster. And then the turnover there, it's just a total meltdown, late there where you had a game that could have been a 2-point game and all of a sudden it's an 8-point game and it was over. And then Philly was off and running. And Marcus was whatever the opposite of catalyst is, for that. He lit the flame. He was the tinder. Jimmy, I like you up here, buddy. So I'm moving you.
Okay. What did I miss? Because this is the first time in show history I couldn't hear you right off the top. I don't even. I was probably talking over you and didn't even know I was talking over you.
You were talking about the quote. You were reading the quote, and we were trying to tell you that we're live. We thought you were doing it for effect. Yeah.
No, I had no idea we were live. I mean, I could have been reading a lot worse, but
yeah.
I mean, I guess sum it up. Brad Stevens sounded disappointed in the team in the fourth quarter there, which checks out.
Fourth quarter meltdown. We went in a little bit on Marcus there. I mean, he's not the only person. There was a lot of breakdowns, but just that exchange there where he took that crazy degree of difficulty layup, and then the turnover, of course, and the game was over there after he threw that lazy pass to Simmons. So just a bad couple of sequences there for Marcus, but really the whole team in the fourth quarter, just a collapse like that. I mean, how many times? What was the game earlier in the year where it was over? And then the other team went on like a 10-0 run in 12 seconds. It was the Pritchard tip-in game.
No, there was another game where the starters had to come back in too. Was that the
there was that,
game?
But there was the Pritchard tip-in game. I think was a 10-point
Miami.
game.
It was the 10-0 run against Miami.
Yeah, and that happened in like 48 seconds. This one was at least 90
right before
seconds.
The layoff. Yeah. So that has happened this year. Certainly, we know the defense hasn't been great all year. I think that's where things started to go awry early in the fourth. Lapses against Simmons, letting him get into the lane with some kickouts. I was disappointed, though, that they did such a great job on Joel Embiid in this game. Now he ends up with 38, which doesn't look like a great job in the end, but they got him into some foul trouble. They forced a little frustrating stretch on him through the midway point of the game. And to let Kirk Boz, Simmons in the fourth, who had been struggling for pretty much 7 straight quarters to start this. I'm thinking of Danny Green a little bit too when we consider his offensive rebound, and then that stretch of this one as well. And Dwight was great in this one in that third quarter. Like, the role guys killed Boston here. I thought this was the worst bench night for the Celtics, and the starters collapsed too, of course, in the end. But what set it up after the Celtics had a pretty commanding lead midway through was that bench disaster in the third. I thought Green was better late, bad early in this one. Semi got going a little bit late. I think a Theis got knocked around a little bit by Embiid, as you would expect. And Rob had a great stretch early, but you couldn't go back to him later. So not the best night for the bench. And you know how I feel about Jeff Teague. I don't even have to say anything about his night.
You really are going to go with there, Jeff Teague. You're going to give the Jeff Teague cheap shot this early in the show. You couldn't resist.
He was awful. He was so bad when he
but of the people we're going to talk about who are bad, are we going to focus time on the guy who's like the fourth guard on the team who plays about 8 minutes a game, or the two dudes who started who were just absolute net negatives again, with Grant Williams and Tristan Thompson starting playing minutes?
They were better than Teague though.
Thompson, I'm not going to really bash Thompson tonight. I thought he played much better than he did Wednesday. They tried to get him going a little bit early in the game. I mean, they were driving to the hoop and they were finding him wide open under the basket. He missed a couple, or at least missed one. John, like we've talked about, he makes it look difficult on offense. He makes it look very, very difficult. The ball just does not leave his hands like how it should. I don't know.
What are we talking about?
Thompson. Like the 4 foot, 6 foot,
he's flat
shots
on both ends.
Everything is.
He just can't really get to where he needs to get. But they are working at it. I thought he played much better tonight than Wednesday.
On offense, yeah.
On offense, yeah, sure.
Defense, still not good.
Defense.
I heard Grandy on the radio say Embiid, and this was through the third quarter, 9 of 10 against Thompson.
It's not even close. It's an automatic bucket. There's not even a token resistance. It's abysmal.
Theis not much better either on the defensive side.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they have nobody. Very few people have someone who can match up with them.
Rob did all right.
Thompson is supposed to be able to put up a little bit of a fight, and he can't.
Now, Embiid is just nasty. That stretch he went on against Rob in particular, because Rob was, competing down there, holding his ground, but then he would pull out the spin move and the footwork and the ducking up and under against them. Just impossible moves to deal with. And then you saw him gaming the officials. When they started, you saw Theis bump him a few times on some rebounds. He comes up with the neck. He comes up with the knee. I think that was in the second quarter. And all of a sudden, after halftime, the free throws start flowing again. I saw he got up to 11 by the end of the night. He ends up, it wasn't a 21 free throw type night for him, but, he made his mark with the officials and ended up getting his 14 of 15 at the line by the end of this one. His efficiency is insane. He hits both threes. I mean, this guy is just moving closer and closer to MVP status to start this year. And again, through foul trouble, 30 minutes, he scores 38.
I know Greg Leclerc is clearly not a big Grant fan. The comment is up there for a long time, poor Grant. But I will say it was tough watching him try to put some low post moves that he just doesn't have. I mean, I don't know where you go with Grant. I know they're starting him right now. I'm just, my basketball brain isn't big enough, but I just don't see maybe what other people see in terms of really what he's
Brad
really good at out there.
Brad clearly stopped seeing it as well, because he pulled the plug in the second. He pulled the plug early.
But I saw him late too, though.
No, but I'm saying he played 11 total minutes. He played 4 in the first half.
You know what I hated too? That
Brad saw it and he killed
Yeah,
him.
right. Well, it's a tough matchup. I mean, anybody you put in that position is going to be tough. We haven't even mentioned Tobias Harris, or maybe you guys haven't. I haven't, and I wasn't listening.
No, we haven't talked about him all series.
Another guy he's a guy that, listen, he can score. He got the money that he got, but I think a lot of people in Philly would have probably gotten rid of them if they could. I mean, he's a guy that you can't let him get everything he wants to get like he did tonight. And he was Wednesday, he was great for them, and tonight he was even better. So if he's on and Simmons is doing his thing, which again, it's crazy that he won't shoot an 18-footer, but he's so effective the way he is on both ends. I mean, it's almost like you want to criticize him and I want to make fun of him, but I can't, because he's the reason that Philly pulled away like they did down the stretch there in the fourth. I mean, just what the other effects he has in the game.
He's an excellent mid-range shooter, and those break up the game a little bit. It's kind of like a Jaylen Brown thing that you see from him this year.
Wait, wait. Are we talking about Harris or Simmons here?
Harris.
Okay, yeah, Jimmy had switched.
Yeah, well, I moved it to Simmons, and I know Simmons isn't a great
He's not an excellent
shooter.
No.
It was Simmons who pulled them from, like, Celtics were in striking distance, and then Simmons' effect in the game, defensive end and on the offensive end, even though he doesn't shoot, it's still reason to, consider him, a very lethal option out there on the court.
Yeah, and he gets the transition game opening in that fourth. Yeah. You shouldn't see the game that wide open in the fourth quarter, though, and that comes down to the turnover that we already went over a bunch. But I also see from the Celtics this whole series, and the Sixers did it too when they got hurt for stretches of the game doing this, just gaming the officials. And Grant did it, which was worst of all. You're going to take this crazy fadeaway shot on the baseline and stop playing to talk to the ref. Tough. And that ended up being a transition breakout in the third quarter. And it's like, what are you doing? You haven't had any success all season offensively. You think you're going to get a call? And, Smart does it a little bit. Jaylen has done it throughout sectors of this series.
So,
all right, a lot.
You mentioned it. Smart is now at the point where he's like the boy who cried wolf. Like, even if he does get fouled, like, I don't even think he's going to get the benefit of the doubt anymore because of like the history there with the flailing.
How about the play at the beginning? The elbow falls, Embiid just sends it out to Harris, and then
Embiid is like, what's this guy doing? And then they go and go down the court, and Marcus is pretending like he got hit in the mouth. He didn't get hit in the mouth. I understand reacting to an elbow that's coming your way, but
I've never understood.
You can't go 150%. Like
I've never understood this. The refs, there are cameras. Okay, they watch this. If they don't catch it in real time, they see it after the game. Like, that stuff kills your credibility. You can't do stuff like that all the time.
That one didn't have a chance.
You've completely lost credibility. There's
not only that, John. But that
being said, Embiid gets away with it. Embiid flopped 40 times tonight.
Yep.
Embiid embellishes everything, and it's more embarrassing when you do it when you're 7'2", 270 pounds. You're drinking a margarita?
Actually, yeah, I am.
Good for you.
That's a good tasting drink.
Well, I figured it's Friday night. I imagine a few of the people watching tonight will probably have some sort of bev with them. So we like to sort of mix it up with the commenters. So I figured I'd, join the people and, have a little casual. Just a casual, nothing crazy.
I respect it.
I'm not going to get drunk on you.
I got a full bar behind me. I might have to go.
Go throw it on big screen to Bobby. We'll talk about Jaylen Brown.
I'm going big screen to you, and I'm going to get a drink.
Go to Bobby, tell him to talk about Jaylen Brown.
No, I'm going to go get.
Let's do a commercial break right now.
Split screen.
The Toronto Raptors are back. Should we do that?
Yeah.
We'll do that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that at some point. But the Marcus Smart, Joel Embiid is a nice little bonus to this. I'm calling it a rivalry. I think when you talk about who the Celtics rivals right now, I think it starts with the Sixers. And I'm not talking historically. I'm talking right now, today. It's the Sixers. I mean, the Heat are creeping up, but I don't call that a rivalry, and I don't really know what other teams you even have as a rivalry right now, to be honest.
You throw away last year's series because Philly was so uncompetitive there, and if we look 2 years ago too, I guess it's.
But there's some animosity between the two.
But the games were intense enough. You have the familiarity. You have the division games. These teams are going to play each other 4 times a year, and then on top of that, the playoffs. That's as close as you're going to get in today's game. The proximity of
right. So the smart Embiid, a little back and forth. They had some comments for each other, or Marcus Smart had some comments for Embiid, and Embiid
was that friendly, or was that apprehensive? You think?
It was a little of both. I mean, it's not like hatred, but there's certainly, I'm sure that there's some annoyance and animosity between the two, and I saw them have a nice little embrace after the elbow that wasn't from Embiid. I don't really know what that was all about, but hey, and, adds to a little bit of the drama. These teams are going to see each other, I would imagine in the playoffs at some point. So,
I wanted to talk about something you said earlier, because during the playoffs last year with Simmons out, and again, it was a Simmons for Hayward swap, so you can argue in terms of value to each team what that would have done in it. But so much was made of Simmons being a game changer because of his defense. And certainly he made big defensive plays late in the game here, so no one's going to deny it. But he was primarily on Jaylen for a lot of the first game and bit stretches tonight. And Jaylen ate him alive. ate him alive.
Yeah.
Jaylen's too quick and Simmons is a phenomenal athlete. Jaylen is too quick for him.
Are we gonna talk about Jaylen?
No. No, I mean, let's go there because it is by far the most impressive thing. That he's. I mean, you said it in a text, and it's kind of half joking, but like you're like Jaylen is Jordan, but like,
well, people used to joke about it, and now at this rate of production,
he is getting any shot he wants.
He's Michael Jaylen
anytime. And the most amazing thing about Jaylen is I still don't think he's hit peak. Like, there's still a place he can go where he's going to be legitimately unguardable. Like, because he's almost there where he can get anywhere on the floor he wants at this point. And all of these shots, it's so rare he takes a Tatum type of shot, which Tatum hits.
Agreed. That's a great point.
But he doesn't take Tatum shots where he's like, okay,
smart shots.
He's physically able to get where he needs to go because he's faster and more athletic than Tatum is, and nobody can stay in front of him. So he's constantly moving. He's got the little jitters and the crossovers. Simmons was off balance all night. Simmons was crossing himself over trying to stay in front of Jaylen. He could not do it. Couldn't do it.
I meant the Marcus Smart shots. He doesn't take the Marcus Smart shots.
No, he doesn't. But I'm saying Tatum takes them and makes them. I mean, it's part of his game.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
He puts it in your eye. And I mean, he's at a very high percentage. So that's part of his thing. But Jaylen doesn't do that. Jaylen's points, we're talking about what seems to be an unsustainably high shooting percentage from mid-range. But one of the reasons he's doing it is they're almost all good looks, you know?
Brown's like mechanical, like methodical. Like, you know, when a quarterback drives down the field and they call it like a methodical drive, like Brady back in the day, I feel like that's more Jaylen Brown's style, where he's not relying on the Hail Marys. You know, he's just firing down, 10-yard pass, 12-yard, 8-yard, you know what I mean? And like all of a sudden at the end of the game, he's got 30 plus points now. That's like, I know, what is it? He's got like 5 30 plus games over this season or something like that. And he had 42 tonight. And it's becoming less
straight 20 plus.
Yeah, so it's becoming less surprising to see him put up those numbers. Of course, he's doing it without Jason Tatum, so he's being asked to do a little bit more. He's taking more shots. He's being looked at to take that shot. But he's also stepping. I know they took the loss and they lost earlier this week, but he's still, in my opinion, stepping up and doing everything he can to at the very least, keep these games competitive and give the Celtics a chance to win them. It should be great. It would be great if they could have won one of these two without Tatum, but it is a tall task when you're playing what I think we all consider one of the best teams, not only in the Eastern Conference, but possibly a team that obviously is top 10 in the league for sure. I don't know where you'd put them, but the way they're playing right now.
I was worried too when Kemba came back. I think we all slightly had this worry that the ball would come out of his hands a little bit. And against the Knicks, we saw that especially. He ended, some of our commenters put it as corner Jaylen, stuck in the corner, taking the catch and shoot shots. I believe like 6 of his first 8 shots in that game are catch and shoot threes. Mm-hmm. And Kemba's usage rate was through the roof in that game. I wrote for CLNS. It was like 44-30 Kemba to Jaylen in that game. And then they come out last game against Philly. He gets right on the ball. They're both able to complement each other a little bit. They trade possessions. And again, tonight, there's no issues back and forth between those two.
Well, the ball ran through. Shoots. I'm curious the numbers, but the ball ran through Brown on so many possessions. And it kills me. I tweeted this during the game. It kills me when they have an entire possession when Brown doesn't touch the ball. When we talked about a few games ago, I remember like we were killing Marcus Smart taking too many hero ball shots late in the game and a loss. I can't remember which game it was. And we got into that debate, who should shoot, who shouldn't shoot. Grant took a corner 3 in this.
Oh, it was the Detroit game, yeah.
It's less about who's touching the ball. It's less about who's taking the shots and more about who's touching. Going entire possessions without Brown in this case, or when Tatum's here, without Brown and Tatum touching the ball drives me insane. They don't have to shoot it. The ball's got to get in their hands somewhere during possession in late situations. And tonight, up until the game got away from them, Brown was consistently having the ball in his hands. They were running things through him. Didn't happen Kemba's first game back, as you mentioned, but you can throw that one out the window.
And it got away from him a little bit last game too. Tonight,
a little bit.
7 shots in the fourth. I thought that was on the mark. Really 6. One was garbage time.
Yeah.
But he's efficient. If you get him 10 shots, he's going to make 5 or 6 of them. If you get him 30 shots, he's well above 50% here. And that playoff game, I think it was game 6 against Toronto last year. How many shots did he take in that one that drove Jimmy crazy? I think it was over 30. And I remember
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
No, I think it was like mid to upper 20s. But this was.
And again,
when everybody was playing, and like it was a little different situation.
Well, I just never have a problem with him shooting as many. It's like the more the merrier because his efficiency's through the roof, and it was last year. For most of his career, and throughout the first 2 years there, he's an upper 40s and now above 50 consistently shooter from the field because he's a great finisher. That mid-range is expanded. And you guys said there's not those Marcus shots. Well, he's taking a lot of those pull-up threes and hitting a ton of them. So you look at his shot charts after the game, he just hits from everywhere.
Well, he's earned that right. I'm shocked when a 3-point, when a clean look at a 3 doesn't go down when Jaylen shoots it. It's amazing right now.
And the free throws there now. I mean,
he did miss a couple late, but again, late.
We've had this conversation before, and it's useless. It really isn't. It's just fun to have because it doesn't matter. But like he could be as good as Tatum. Why not? Like, what's stopping him?
There's nothing stopping him at all. And,
he's going to be an all-star this year.
Before we go on, he is going to – well, there's not going to be an all-star game, so who cares?
They'll probably still name them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. This is new because we did, like, an entire segment on, like, why is everything so hard for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? Like, everything just looks hard for them. Like, that's literally the segment we did this year. Like maybe it was right before the season started or right after it started.
Yeah,
so
they look
it looks like everything is like hard, like it takes a lot of effort. Effortful, exactly. Like you don't have to go that far back. So this is a new development. We're all acting like, oh, this is Jaylen Brown. This is who he is. Blah blah blah. It's like this is Jaylen Brown 2.0. This is like Bubble Brown, but like even more so. So it's great to see, and I love that it's happening.
It's a great point, Jimmy, because it does. We did talk about they seemingly sometimes make it hard on themselves. For Jaylen, you still have a lapse or two with some sloppy ball. Turnovers are a tad high for him still. But again, that's also going to be a byproduct of just having the ball in your hands a lot more than he used to, where offense didn't run through him as much. So that's going to happen. Beyond that, it looks effortless this year. Not effortless, but smooth. Easy.
Sure. Yeah, it looks natural, right?
It's just natural. He's just everything. You always talk about, I always use the analogy of you guys have all seen The Matrix, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Keanu finally figures it out, and all of a sudden everybody's moving real slow. Like that's what the game's starting to come like for Jaylen. Mm-hmm. It's like everything's slowed down around him, and he's like, I get it now. And it's so easy, I mean, not easy, but it's so much more natural than before, where he just kind of go and then hope. We'll see how this ends up. I don't know. I don't think you can say enough about him. I think a lot of commenters here are saying it like he's better than Jason already. He's better than Jimmy. You said
bias, so
it is, but you said why can't he be better? I at this point I don't know that you can make a strong argument with certainty that Tatum's absolutely the man.
So what Tatum still has on him is the pick and roll, and I came into the season, I got blasted for a little bit. I shouldn't have, because we have Goodman saying he's not even a second option. But I was hesitant to see if he could become a ball handler to where he could make plays for others and run effective pick and rolls. And he's doing it. He's hitting Theis. He's finding guys on the short roll and all those other things. But Tatum dominates it, and I still have gripes about Tatum's turnovers sometimes in it, but when he hits it, that pick and roll with Tatum just breaks teams down, and they go on 10, 15-point runs with him on the floor. Brown's great in his own game right now. He can hit big pull-up shots. He almost brought them back into it in the fourth tonight. He played a great fourth. But Tatum blows teams away, and you look at the on-off numbers with him, and he's such a great help defender too. and, great defender in his own right.
Tatum's a great team defender.
Yeah,
And
when he's on the floor, they just
of that
blow teams
length,
away.
he's an unbelievable. I agree with that. There's stuff that Tatum does that still doesn't register enough with people, and playmaking and a lot of different things. For sure. But the thing I like about Jaylen is he puts more pressure on you. Where Tatum has that kind of slow, lull you to sleep. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to dribble. I'm going to set you up and I'm going to go. And Jaylen gets it and goes, and I'm always more in favor of putting the pressure on the defense. How many fouls we talk about Jaylen getting to the line? How much of that is simply based off of speed and catching people backpedaling and off guard? A lot of it. There were a couple of times where he actually wasn't super in control, but because he went hard and fast, he got the call. He bought the call because everyone was trying to settle and, figure it out, as opposed to Tatum, who's going to kind of hold it back there and everybody's going to be waiting to see what he does. So I like that. I think Stevens always talks about playing faster in general. Yeah. And I think Jaylen does that, whereas Tatum is a bit more methodical and calculated and, how he goes about things.
I'd be interested to see too, those transition numbers with him, because just looking at it, I mean, him on the break is like Simmons, Giannis, LeBron, these kind of guys who just create a fast break and a fast break attack of their own. That's what we saw for stretches of tonight too, where they could open up their offense just by giving him the ball on the break and him doing something with it. And that's what he came into the league great at. That was like his first awesome attribute. And now it's the centerpiece of everything he does still.
Well, let me ask you this, Bobby. Go ahead, Jimmy. And then I'll ask after.
Okay, fine. I was just going to add it quickly. There was a comment that you had posted that was, somebody said that Tatum is more like Harden in the sense where he avoids contact a bit, will be more inclined to take the step back. And I think, I'm not comparing him to Harden, but I think that's kind of accurate, like in the sense where Jaylen Brown is more, I mean, if we're making ridiculous comparisons, he's more like a LeBron in the sense where he'll draw contact, he won't sort of force a 3-pointer, or he'll go drive to the hoop more than I think Tatum would. Whereas Tatum's more likely to, Tatum's more likely to do what we had talked about, where he's holding the ball. He acts more like a point guard sometimes Tatum does. And that's fine. That's his skill. I mean, it's to be that size and to be able to act like a point guard is a positive. So I'm not trying to knock him. It's just different playing styles. Yeah. Sometimes it benefits them and sometimes it might hurt them, but certainly we're seeing Jaylen Brown evolve, grow, whatever word you want to use, into a level that I think a lot of us weren't sure he was capable of getting to. I mean, I think that's pretty fair to say.
And he keeps getting higher. That's the thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Keeps,
like now that we're
keeps setting the bar higher for himself, where we're like, where else can this go? That's what's amazing to me.
Right. Now that we're seeing it, we're saying, well, now that we're seeing he can do this, well, now maybe he can do that, and like I'm starting to see that he can do this too. It's almost like a business that you thought you only did one thing, and then they unveil this whole new product that's going to open them up to this extra growth. That's kind of like what we're seeing out of a guy like Jaylen Brown. You're just seeing more than you thought he was capable of.
I put up a couple comments quickly on the screen. We are going to talk a little bit more about Tristan Thompson, even though we hit it a little bit. And we are also going to talk about Peyton Pritchard and give the updates. The Celtics are talking now. We'll update as we go. But right now they said knee sprain. We'll talk about what that means. I did want to address an earlier comment, and it kind of dovetails into something that you wrote about, Bobby, which was how do you think Kemba is going to fit with the Jays here? Because it is going to be interesting when Tatum is back, what this is going to look like. And we'll get into this a little bit later too. Kyrie in his second game back, no Durant tonight, but the Nets drop a second straight to Cleveland. So they're experiencing some growing pains, having three people who need the ball in their hands. And also suffering on the defensive end. It's actually interesting, the parallels between these teams right now, even though the talent level on Brooklyn is hard to ignore. But Bobby, you wrote about it. To talk about that, how do you think this fits Kemba into this offense when Jaylen and Jason are here?
Well, it's going to go one of two ways. You could potentially split usage between those three, like 25, 25, 25, which probably isn't going to happen because you want Tatum above 30 there. I'm interested to see how the balance between Kemba and Jaylen's going to go because, no one's going to question Tatum having all the usage, all the ball time there. But last year, if you look at the numbers, and we saw it visually during the playoffs as well, when that starting five was together, Jaylen was occasionally just tick behind everybody else on the offense, occasionally smart as well, which was the worry last year. That doesn't seem as much of a worry now that he's going to be able to get ahead of Smart. Smart is embracing kind of that fourth role now, taking less than 10 shots a game. But I don't want him to fall back to 24 where he was last year. If he can stay...
Smart took 17 shots today.
Yeah, but, they don't have Tatum. So you're going to have 3 guys over 10.
Yeah.
But it's something to watch for sure. Now, I love the way Brown and Kemba are playing off each other now. The easy solution is to give them all their own bench minutes with players alongside them on the bench. And luckily, Semi and others have been good enough to make that work this year until tonight. But it's a worthy question because what did we just say for a whole segment there? Feed Brown, feed Brown, feed Brown. There's those nights where he's 6 for 8, 8 for 10, and you're like, if he had 8 more shots, he'd be able to hit a good percent of those. And, he makes the best use of those possessions. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? Because I don't think anyone's freaking out about Kemba taking a bunch of shots either. He's incredibly efficient and a great playmaker and dominant the pick and roll.
I mean, I'm a little worried.
We know John's thoughts.
No, I mean, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt because ultimately I think you would rather have talent and then figure it out than have not talent and have to figure. We've seen the problem of having to deal with not talented players and how difficult that is for Brad right now. We've got the Celtics have problems between Grant, Thompson struggling right now. Semi used sparingly. Javante probably playing more minutes than he needs to, even though I think he's played really well. So that's a bigger headache than trying to figure out how to incorporate a player of Kemba's caliber. However, I am definitely a little worried on the fit here, and I'm starting to wonder whether or not he's better in a microwave, not Vinnie Johnson microwave role, but I'm starting to wonder how this would look potentially off the bench. With Kemba,
would never happen.
No,
and it will never happen. And honestly, this is crazy talk because we're talking about we're worried about the fit. First of all, these guys played together last year, and they played pretty damn well, and when they were all healthy.
But that was the issue, though. Like, if there was any issue, it was that.
What it was? What?
The balance of the shots, the ball time.
Fine, but Bobby, this is the NBA. I mean, you want to talk about a league that needs stars, superstars. What did the Nets just do? They had a chance to go out and blow up their team and get James Harden. You think they're worried about how it's going to work, how it's going to fit?
I do think they're a little worried.
Okay, but they weren't worried enough to not do it, right? That's my point. So you can't spin this saying, Kemba coming back might actually be a bad thing for the Celtics. The Celtics
I didn't say bad.
Not a bad thing, but that's essentially.
No, I'm just wondering. Look, it's the same way. It's the same logic, Jimmy. Behind.
I know you're not saying it's a bad thing, but John, you kind of alluded to the point where maybe he's better coming off the bench. It's like he's too good to come off the bench. You have to find a way to make it work, and I don't think it means that it's going to hinder Jason. Listen, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker all can't go out and score 40 points a night. They're going to have to figure out how to get each other involved. One night it's going to be one guy, one night's going to be the other. I think Kemba Walker might take a back seat a little bit points-wise, certainly because of the emergence of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as well. And I think he's the type of guy that's okay with that. I think that may even be one of the reasons why Danny Ainge brought him in, not just for what he can do off the court, but his personality, his team first mentality, and his willingness to maybe watch Jason Tatum, not watch and do nothing, but allow those guys to grow in a way that maybe Kyrie Irving wasn't so into doing, as we can probably guess, right? I mean, certainly we don't think Kyrie Irving and Terry Rozier got along. And it sounds like, listen, maybe they get along now, but the way Jaylen Brown was talking last year, didn't seem, or not last year, 2 years ago, didn't seem like he was a huge Kyrie Irving fan either. This isn't a Kyrie Irving bashing segment. It's a pro Kemba Walker segment that I think that he's the type of player that can allow those guys to grow and, help the team win, and he can be a part of it.
No, and I don't want to insinuate that this is a problem at all. Having all three of them, having the opportunity to sprinkle them across bench lineups and always have one of them on the floor. When all three of them are back, there isn't going to be a second in the game that Brown, Tatum, and Kemba isn't on the floor. And that's going to solve a lot of the bench issues that we're seeing right now. It's just the aggregate's going to add up. They're all going to get their shots over the course of the season. They're all going to have great seasons. There'll just be those certain nights in the playoffs if they don't work this out perfectly before then, that you might see Brown have 8 shots and just kind of take a few corner threes here or there. And you want to set him up. I think what's good, though,
we're past that. We can't have that anymore.
You can't. But what I do think is good is Brown's such a great off-ball player. And this is where he killed Simmons in the series, too, especially on Wednesday. He'll get himself great shots, not being on the ball, too. You know, he shoots well off the catch, across the three-point line. His cuts are amazing. And what's the difference right now between Kemba in the playoffs? You guys have emphasis too. And Kemba now is that Kemba looks great, bouncier, making plays. If that's the Kemba on the ball and you get Brown's best off the ball, it works because those are their strengths. You know, like Brown came up being a great off-ball player. Ideally, you'd love to empower him, but if Kemba's rolling, Brown's rolling, Tatum's rolling, it's all going to fall into place. But the question's Kemba, if he's not himself. That's the question we've been asking all year.
That's the question. But you know what? I'm getting a lot closer to apology cam by the game because he's looking better and better. There's no
his pick and roll is just.
Yeah, there's listen, for me right now, it's just how does he look out there? Is he moving the way that we know he can move, that we've seen him move in the past? If he doesn't have the greatest shooting night, I'm not concerned about that. It's all lower body to me. I want to see how he's moving. That's it. I want to see if he needs to get the next game off, or if he needs to have his minutes limits, or if he's stretching on, if it looks like he's not playing 100%. And right now, I don't see any of that stuff. So
I don't either.
I'm fine with. I'm actually happy to be wrong if that's where this is heading. So
you mentioned this too, Jimmy, just a minute ago. He's going to encourage Brown too, and this is what I love about him. Like, this is the rare attribute of him, is that he comes out after Sunday and says, Brown's just got to keep being super aggressive. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to play hard. I'm going to shoot my open shots. But he's killing it. I don't want him to think that just because I'm back, he can't keep killing it, because he can. That's what I'm here for, to continue to encourage him to be great. I love a quote like that. We get into cliches all the time and what these quotes mean. But Kemba does seem to embody that, the way he plays and the way he approaches things.
No doubt about it. I mean, and like, we made fun of all of the over reporting of Cam Newton and his attitude and his smile with the Patriots this year, but Kemba's got that thing. I mean, he shines it on certainly with the smile, but you always do feel it's genuine. I mean, every single thing we talked about with him last year, it was almost like he was like sent to Boston to not be Kyrie Irving. Like, it was every single thing he did, said, the way he took accountability for things after, the way he always gave credit to his teammates. Nobody's going to question that. The attitude is awesome. And he's just a guy people like having around. It's just the basketball fit at this point. As the Jays continue to evolve and the need for them to have the ball in their hands all the time becomes apparent, then you're asking a person who's done one thing his entire career to do something else. But the problem is, when he's of greatest value is when he's got the ball in his hands and just kind of going and being instant offense on his own. So that's kind of the dilemma, is you can't really ask him to do something else, because then he's not going to be the same player.
No, you're right. But again, it almost goes back to his extent, I guess, kind of what Jaylen Brown is like. We didn't really know what he was capable of fully, and then he added sort of to his game load. So maybe there's more to Kemba Walker's game that he'll be able to grow that we didn't necessarily know he had, because he was never really asked to do it. On the other hand, if Kemba Walker keeps playing the way he is and showing that he's healthy, listen, we know Danny Ainge will trade anybody, right? I mean, aside from maybe a couple guys, but my point is he's certainly not scared to make a deal. And if another team feels that Kemba Walker is now healthy enough where they can make a trade for him, and the trade is there, I mean, you can't rule that out now. The whole thing was getting Kemba Walker back on the court.
A Kemba trade?
Yeah, you can't rule it. I mean, the whole thing was you couldn't trade Kemba because he's hurt and he's never going to be the same, and he has a degenerative knee issue. well, hold on. Now, maybe that was a little too much pushing the panic button. Maybe he is going to be okay. And now maybe he's Kemba Walker again. And maybe, like you're saying, John, he just doesn't fit.
I'll say this. If you're doing that, it's for the long term and you're sacrificing now, and we would lose our minds, or at least I would, because if
I'm not vouching for it. I'm just giving you different, reasons why it's, different, I guess, possibilities with the reemergence of a healthy Kemba Walker. Worst case, he's healthy and playing well, but like, you guys are, or what John's kind of saying is he needs the ball more. He needs to be a scorer, and he can't really, he can't really, show his worth with this current roster. Well, maybe he would want to be traded too. I don't know.
If there is another team that would need a Kemba Walker, a primary ball, a scorer, more than they need something else, then yes. I can't off the top of my head think of matches here. I still think he's too much of an injury risk. The fact that he's an older, smaller player, I don't see Kemba really having trade value. So I think that the thing you have to do here is just figure out just the fit on the court. And it might just be they're the best players. You put them out there and you'll figure it out, because ultimately that's what you've got. And it maybe takes a little bit of time, but I desperately don't want to see the ball come out of, when Tatum's on the floor, I already don't like how Jaylen can sometimes disappear in games just because of Tatum's presence. And it's not anything Tatum's doing wrong. It's just sometimes what he needs to do to be him. And then when you throw in the occasional Marcus Smart hero ball, or Tristan getting the ball in the lane and thinking maybe I should shoot too, and you have 5, 6, 7 trips down the floor where Jaylen's not touching the ball at all. I hate that,
So this comes down to how good Kemba is going to be in that role. Because if he's better in that role than Brown is, and he's rolling the way we're seeing it right now, then it's fine, because they both fall into place. But he does have to shift to this eventually. He's here till 2023. He's not going to be ahead of Brown for all of those years, and he's going to have to find where he can fit in alongside those two if he is going to be here for the rest of the contract.
Again, little bit of recency bias. This, Kemba Walker, cardiac Kemba, has made a career on hitting massive, massive, massive shots late in games.
Look, I love Kemba.
But John, I know you do, but you're almost comparing like, I don't want Kemba to have the ball late in the games, just like I don't want Marcus Smart to have the ball late in games.
The other guy not to have the ball. Not
Kemba's gonna have the ball late in the game.
But there are gonna be points where he's gonna have the ball late in the games, and he might miss it, but that doesn't mean it was the wrong idea or the wrong play. Like
on this show, it does.
We all have to assume that Kemba Walker is going to be on the court late in games, and he's going to get the ball at some point. Having one more guy in the court that can hit a massive shot is a good
big deal.
It's a good thing. I don't want him on the bench. So again, we want to talk about, should he start? Should he sit? It doesn't matter, because at the end of the game, he's going to be on the court. And if the ball's up in his hands, I'm okay with that.
No doubt about that. Late in the game is totally different than everything else.
Right.
Starters doesn't matter either.
You do wonder whether you create more situations throughout the first 3.5 quarters of a game where you have 2 of those guys on the floor a lot of times, and sometimes one, and not as much all 3. That's all. And I could see that happening a little bit more, where you do kind of manage the situations there where you've got a couple of them or one of them on at all times with other people. So, there's always one of the knocks on Jaylen before was not able to create his own offense. He was more of a, stand in the corner, knock down the jumpers, but he wasn't able to do it consistently on his own. Now you really do have 3 guys who can generate offense at any point in time if you put the ball in their hands, and that is a luxury. You've lost Hayward and his ability to do that, but Jaylen's ascension right now, you put the ball in their hands and you feel pretty good as long as you got 1 or 2 of those guys on the floor at all times.
So I'm glad we're cheering for a loss, I'm glad we're cheering for a loss because there are good signs here, but there is still something glaring here, and I hear Brad Stevens talk about it throughout the week, probably the last 2 weeks, really, is that center position.
Okay, good. There he is.
Here we go.
Tristan. Have at it, everybody. Everyone have your pound of flesh.
John, why don't you start?
No, because I don't want to turn it into an "I told you so" thing. I wasn't a Thompson guy to begin.
Is there something wrong with him?
It's not an "I told you so" thing yet, because
But I don't want to
early in the season.
I don't want to start because I don't want to gloat.
Bobby, you start.
It's what we keep saying. He's worse than what we thought, and I think it's fair to question whether or not he might be hurt because
he's so bad that you wonder something wrong here.
He's
worse
bad.
than what we thought. He's worse than what we thought. Is he worse than Miles Turner, Bobby?
No, we're not going to go there yet. I think you need half a season at least to see, was something wrong early on? Do they have to shut him down for a little bit here? Does it something else come up that they just kind of set him aside for a little bit? Because it is bad right now in a way that you mentioned early in the show. And we've talked about for a couple of shows in a row now. He can't get himself involved offensively. He actually took 3 shots in the first 3 minutes and hit 2 and then disappeared for the rest of the night. But I'd be fine with 0 points. Yeah. If he
Turner 22 and 9 tonight with another 3 blocks, but that's okay.
With the hand injury too. Wow.
Yeah.
So something's got to be wrong because we know he's not this bad. We know we've watched him in Cleveland. A year ago, he had the best season of his career. So Stevens mentioned it yesterday. He says he thinks he came back too fast with no training camp.
And that I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. I'm just going to say what I said before the season started. I do believe most people, because Cleveland has been so irrelevant for a couple of years, I do think most people who were on board with the Thompson signing remembered a version of Thompson that existed 4 and 5 years ago.
He was great.
And I know he had statistically a better overall offensive year last year, or all around year statistically last year. But again, it was on a bad Cleveland team. So we're not watching them enough to see what the opportunity was and what the need on that team was to know why, if that's why his points per game were up. But I think in terms of his athleticism, his ability, and he's not a super athlete, but just how he moves and the way he plays, I think we're remembering a version of him that existed 3 and 4 years ago and not most recently.
And what I want to say to that is, like, Tristan Thompson, like his style of play, the position, like the way he plays, like that should be able to translate somewhat easily from team to team because he's not a guy that you play around. He's not a guy you draw plays for. He's a guy that does his thing pretty much regardless of who's around him, right? For the most part. I mean, he's gonna cut to the basket on drives. He's gonna go for the boards. He's going to put back points. So like John's kind of right in the sense where it's like maybe some of us do remember the Tristan Thompson that had LeBron James around him, and he was a little bit had less mileage on. I'm not going to call him old because he's not old, but he had some some maybe younger legs. And now it's like, well, what do we actually get here? Because he does look like he's having trouble getting off the ground, right? Some of again, I'll go back to like the shots he took in the beginning of the game tonight. I think 2 or 3 went in, but they all were like kind of funky and like it was almost like what like what's up with this release? And I don't know. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's a health thing. I don't know. I'm not giving up on him. Obviously, I did like the signing. I know that I was certainly on. People were starting to draw a line like, well, Miles Turner or Tristan Thompson. I was obviously on the Miles Turner side. But if you compartmentalize, I still think Thompson was a good signing, but he certainly hasn't lived.
You guys could end up being right for sure. And
I take no pride in it. I'm not trying to be right.
But it's early as well. And what I'll say is,
yo, did I lose you guys?
No.
I thought I said you dropped.
Oh, me. Okay, good.
You dropped for a second, but you look pretty good now.
I don't want to give up on him because I think there's possibly something lingering here. He might be playing through something. It's just, how do you get to the point where he is playing great? Because it's not like there's going to be an all-star break. They're probably going to be playing games during that. They just play and travel and play and travel. And if he sits, all of a sudden you got to ramp him back up at another point. So I see why Stevens is still pressing him 30 minutes and trying to get him going and keeping him in the starting lineup. Because let's be real about a Philly series here. The way Philly's playing, the way they've improved, Theis isn't going to stop Embiid. Rob might one day, but probably not this year, be able to slow him. The best bet they have against a guy like Embiid, Bam, those type of guys who hurt Boston a year ago is a Tristan, getting him fully integrated and having him play well. So I think there's a fine balance right now because I do hate how he's hurting Theis because we did our rankings after last game. Theis is clearly the best center on the roster right now. He's playing well. He's adapting. I thought he was awesome again tonight. I want to get the starters from last year back again together when Tatum comes back. And I don't know where that leaves Thompson. We had that discussion last game. Where do you get him minutes? You want Rob to still have minutes. So, you know what I got to say? They got to make a deal at some point here. They just have to. TPE, all the stuff we've talked about. The roster is in flux. And I think you hear Stevens calling for it a little bit. Like, why are you running 2 big lineups? We got to get Rob a little run by himself. You know, we can't not have Rob get opportunity. And this again, you see it tonight. They're going 2 big again. And every single lineup they send out there's an awkward 5th man in it. We talk about Grant. Grant shouldn't be playing the 4. So they're trying to find minutes for 4 centers here. They don't have a wing spot. This goes back to what John said. Maybe they should have signed a wing. But there's still a chance here for Danny Ainge. And this is going to be the final way we write this story. How does Ainge address this? How does Tristan get himself in action by the end of the year? These are the key questions because there's no way they go this whole year without making a trade, is there? Like, I can't see it.
I don't know.
If they do,
John?
it's not going to be great.
What's up?
I can't hear John. Can you?
I got John.
What the hell? He like went below and like he screwed up the audio. He's doing something over there.
He's messing with you.
Look
You
at
got me,
him.
John,
Now I'm up
right?
here.
I know. I just moved you.
All right, I'm gonna dip out and come back.
Sorry. I think I messed with it.
You had to make yourself a drink.
No, that wasn't it. I did that thing on a Mac when you accidentally screen enlarge.
Yep.
And I just couldn't shrink it down, so I jumped to a different window and I nuked Jimmy by accident.
Any word on Pritchard? You keeping a track of the log there?
All I see is still what they said before: knee sprain, MRI coming.
All right, let's see. Maybe they avoided something. It certainly didn't look good. Probably got to hit on that a little bit before the show ends.
Yeah,
He's been fading in significance a little bit over the last few weeks. So I guess it's good they've ramped up Teague a little bit to get there, but I have no confidence in Teague being able to contribute anything.
I don't know. I mean, you hate to see it. I was trying to see if there were any Twitter docs out there who had said anything based on the mechanism. I haven't seen anything yet. Actually, I might text one while we're on the air here.
Might as well. I was about to say something, but what am I going to add to this? I don't know.
Yeah. Jimmy's waving us on. Jimmy,
Let
you good?
me in. What the hell? Dude,
Let me in.
I've been like this for 5 minutes. You know what you look. I can always tell when you're looking at like you're scrolling through the like Twitter or something. I can always tell.
I was looking for something. I'm texting someone.
Yeah, well,
we got to figure out what's wrong with Pritchard. What do you think,
Listen,
Jimmy? You got a diagnosis?
I actually am a doctor, and I do believe it was a knee sprain based on the information that I saw on the TV screen and the way he was walking off.
The Celtics certainly said that.
It didn't seem like he was in torn ACL type pain. It felt like he was in knee sprain type pain, and the level of which Jaylen Brown hit the side of his knee kind of confirmed that to me after a couple of replays in the old DVR. So I'm going with knee sprain. I was happy to hear that. Well, I wasn't happy to hear that, but I was.
But
happy
they
to hear
say
it was
that.
more serious.
But that doesn't mean anything.
Hey, listen. I believe they didn't have to say anything. They didn't have to say.
No, I'm saying knee sprain doesn't mean anything until it's an MRI. That just means.
I get it. I mean, listen, he's still going to miss some time. I mean, the guy could barely put any weight on his knee. We're not going to see him for a bit, but it's a hell of a lot better than, what it could have been. I don't even want to say it.
Yeah, it still might be. That's the point. Is we don't know.
Yeah, it might be. All right,
if this is an ACL situation, and if that happens, that would be such a bummer. Just based off of.
Be awful.
Be awful.
Fluke.
That was the one thing you were getting something out of that you were wondering, you're not getting contributions out of the year 2 guys, with Grant being dreadful and Romeo obviously still being hurt, and Carson being Carson, and then
being Neesmith.
And then Neesmith is what I will say on Neesmith's behalf. Thank goodness he had an injury tonight, so he didn't have to have another DNPCD next to his name, because that's more embarrassing. But he was out with I don't know what it was, a hip or something.
Back spasms.
Hurt feelings.
Back spasms. Back spasms means I'm not going to play you.
Yeah, just go with back spasms for the
Okay.
foreseeable future.
That's
But-
like undiagnosable.
Pritchard returned to the bench. I doubt
He
that
did.
would have happened.
He was wearing like a trash bag. I don't know what he was wearing.
He was
Camo,
in his,
like
dude. He's in his like going from the arena to the plane attire. He probably didn't think that he was going to be sitting courtside tonight wearing it.
Yeah.
But I choose to be positive about this until I have to be negative. I'm not going to jump to any sort of crazy conclusions. I just won't do it. There's already enough worry in my life. I'm not going to worry about Peyton Pritchard until I absolutely have to. So that being said, it still does suck because I do feel like we're not going to see him for a little bit. But maybe they dodged a bullet. I mean, fluke injuries are going to happen. And this brings me to my next question. Is Jeff Teague ready to take over that role, Bobby? Your thoughts?
Is Jeff Teague ready to get released? No, seriously. I mean, the only guy.
I hope he is, but
the only guy. So, say they do make a move on a buyout guy later in the year. Who would you go? Green has the non-guaranteed money, which I think actually might have passed at this point or very soon. And you keep Green anyway because he's playing well. So if you had to dump anybody on this roster, he's probably the one to go. Like there's no upside here. What you get is what you get.
you don't get any upside off. Here's the thing, and this is why there will never be a Teague apology.
Veteran, like
This is why there will never be a Teague apology, Cam. His value, his value existed on a team where
This wasn't game one. It was woo.
No, but his value existed on a team that had limited veteran presence without Kemba Walker to start the season, deep concerns about who might be coming off the bench and playing point guard, and Peyton Pritchard is the only other viable option. What you didn't expect was Pritchard to be as good as he was, and then Kemba to come back and look really good right out of the gate.
Right.
Each of those two things creates a situation where you really don't need Teague minutes ever at this point. So it's almost hard to get mad at him because he's entirely superfluous. To me, if he comes in and he scores a couple of buckets, anything you get off of him is gravy because you're not counting on him. The reason he had value at the beginning was you thought you might have to count on somebody, and you felt better about it being somebody who has some level of experience. And I would have felt roughly the same about Wanamaker too. At least he's a basketball player who you can put out there. I mean, Wanamaker had more minutes than he needed or he should have had last year, but he saved their bacon a lot of times. There were other games where you're like, there's too much Wanamaker in this game. But you thought you might need Teague. With the emergence of Pritchard and the return of Kemba, you realize you don't really need Teague.
Right, but now you need Teague.
But now you might need Teague. So again, we'll see. What he does here.
This is where I'll not going to do apology cam on. I will. If I have to do apology cam on Teague, I will, because I was pumping him up early on. And actually, we did make Bobby. We already made Bobby apologize on Teague, so that's kind of hilarious. That
I know that wasn't fair. That wasn't fair.
Out of the three,
I thought I apologized for something else. I did.
I thought so. Okay, maybe.
I don't think it was Teague. I would have said no to Teague.
Pretty sure we made you apologize, or at least we bullied you into saying something about Teague. But anyways, if he cannot, fill the void left by Pritchard, however long Pritchard's out, I'll apologize, because I did think that Teague was a good signing, low cost, a guy that's killed the Celtics over the years. And he's been, he's a proven player in the NBA. Like John just mentioned, you brought him in because he could sort of like hold down the fort, so to speak, when needed. If he can't do that, then yeah, fuck it.
I think what I didn't do, you got to help me. I don't remember what I apologized for. It wasn't that, but I did acknowledge.
It was more or less us just ragging on you because you had a really
No, but I did an official apology.
It was something else.
Yeah, I can't think of it off the top. But what I did admit with Teague is that he drew defense and dribbled in a way that helped other players out, which is probably the most I can say about him. He hits free throws too. He's an awesome free throw shooter, and he's gotten there in a couple different games. I like the way he defends a little bit. So there's certain attributes here that lend toward him being, like you said, a more explosive alternative to Wanamaker, who draws a different kind of defense. But I just looked at Wanamaker like, you invested 2 years in him. He was defending excellent within the system.
I like
Wanamaker. Great playoff run.
Dude, we're gonna sit here and talk about Wanamaker.
He was fine.
I mean, don't like.
Why would you keep him 2 years to let him walk?
It's hard to get mad about a guy who's supposed to be playing 8 to 10 minutes a game and maybe giving you a spark off the bench. He's just not a source of. Again, this is why I don't mean to bring it back to my points of contention with the team, but you're starting Grant Williams, right now, and I know you won't when Tatum comes back. You're still searching for that rotational wing, and right now Javonte Green looks like the best suited guy, maybe Semi at times, and you're an absolute mess with your starting center right now. And these are real issues. The Teague issue to me is such a minor thing.
Yeah, it could become more significant now, though. He was brutal through stretches of this game. He had to play a little more after Pritchard went out, and he dribbled the ball off his foot and missed Rob on a lob. And again, I just don't see what he brings besides a nice explosive scoring game every 10 games or so. What I was thinking of this second guess tonight because I've watched a few Clippers games.
Oh, here we go, Bobby. You apologize for the Raptors.
That's it, and that was deserved. But tonight, though, they showed me something. They went out and wrecked the Heat end to end.
Even better. We might have to apologize for giving you that, for making you apologize.
There's a double apology.
My apology cam is going to be for forcing that apology cam on you.
We have a couple other exciting cams that I can't wait to bring onto the show. I know they're not ready. I'm not saying we need to use them today,
the
but
Tristan one.
That's called the tease. It's called the tease, Bobby. You don't give it away.
I was saying apology cam. If we ever have to get to Tristan, it's going to be a sad, sad day. But I'm holding out for a little while.
Oh, that'll be. I want the Miles Turner apology cam is the one that I really want. I don't want Tristan Thompson to be bad.
Let's see. Miles Turner that one depends on the TPE still, and we're gonna have that conversation all season. But
I'm almost tired of being right.
I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted by it.
I was thinking of.
It's not for everybody.
I was thinking of the TP after you guys brought up some more names after the last show. And then I threw on some Clippers games, and I'm watching Nick Batum. We all kind of threw that one away. Like, oh, he's too expensive. Why would they do that? He's broken. And again, I don't think anyone's going to be like, well, we'd all have to do an apology cam on that one because I don't think anyone was wanting to bring on Batum for 20-something million or whatever it was. But he is filling an excellent passing role, secondary shooting role off the ball for LA. He's rejuvenated. It looks like he's in great shape. He's playing for another contract. And he would be fitting right in on that wing spot where they needed someone. And that would have been the perfect trade-off for Hayward. They would have sent it back like nothing. So the question will be by the end of the year, does TPE become better than what Nick Batum's doing for the Clippers right now? Because, that would have thrown you into the tax. Again, we don't care about the tax. It's great to not repeat and drive up the cost and all that stuff. But if you had a player who would have been better than anything else they could acquire with that by the end of the year, and they still might have to pay tax for that TPE, that could be a second guess by the end of the year. I'm starting to think about that one a little more lately.
I don't think anybody thought Batum was a good idea, so I don't think that's something anyone's got to apologize. And
the Clippers got him for $1 million, so
everyone was talking about getting him, and then launching him into space. Like you weren't planning on
Let me read his stats this year: 10 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists.
He's been good.
44% from 3.
Batum shakalaka.
He's been a key piece out there.
It's possible. I mean, it's kind of fills that role that we were talking about. That
you can't get Horford because he's too expensive. But how would you not gladly put Horford on this team right now?
There'd be 6 centers then. How would they work that out?
You'd get rid of the rest of them. Thompson and the TPE for Horford. Would you do it?
There'd be picks going the other way, but it's a big contract too.
Big contract. I think you might be getting picks in that deal. I'm sure it doesn't work straight up on the trade machine, but it's close.
I wouldn't do it. I don't think so.
Wow.
That ship has sailed.
Coward.
What if you were also able to get rid of Grant in the process? Wouldn't that sweeten the deal?
No, I don't think I would do it.
Bobby doesn't want to get rid of anybody on Green, man.
Horford's so good though. Man, these Batum numbers are just devastating to read. But again, no one wanted to go in that direction.
Why are we not talking about Taco? I don't know, because Taco hasn't freaking sniffed the court. What the hell are we supposed to talk about Taco?
There's this thing. So fans are freaking out tonight. I'm watching on Twitter. I'm watching the comments here. No Tatum. Kemba's limited still, Rob's limited, and Embiid just came out with 2 of his best games of the season, and these games aren't going to mean that much. They might be tiebreaker games, I guess, and this is kind of the argument against the series that Tatum's down for 2 games, and all of a sudden Philly essentially gets the tiebreaker of him being out for this 1 week. So that's why they didn't do as many series this year. But aside from that, who cares? Like, it's game 14. You know, you want them to win these games, but we saw some good things. And all of a sudden, Taco needs to come in. Yeah, I don't know.
Bobby, read this comment and hang your head in shame.
Yeah, seriously.
I hesitated when I said no to her because I knew that what was going on here. Again, though, this is celebrating the past, you know?
Well, we're living in the present, bub.
You would do that, Jimmy? Tristan and whatever for Horford and...
No, I wouldn't, because I don't think that was the purpose of the TPE, to just go freaking grab a guy that
it could end up being the best guy, though. John keeps pressing this. Like, what is the best thing that they could hope for there? I don't know.
I don't know, but that's the thing is, we're back to
patient.
We're back to something over nothing, and whether the something is better despite its warts, you know, because the TPE is nothing if you don't use it for whatever, and whatever you're going to use it on.
Al? Why, okay, well, let's just focus. Why Al? What's Al's worth to
defense?
This team? I mean, you're talking
defense.
Yeah. He's been a good rebounder this year, too.
Solid,
he's playing well down there. It's just, do you want him through 2023?
Defense, and he can stretch it. You know, I know
so that much money for some defense? You can't find somebody else that can play some defense?
It's not that much money. Like, here's the thing.
He's got some incentives.
If you look at it like, would I go sign him with this pile of cash if I had it for that money? No. But would I get rid of Tristan Thompson's corpse and a piece of paper that says 20 million on it for an upgrade on my roster? The answer is maybe. That's all I'm saying.
You made me think about it.
It's
John,
obviously too soon, but yeah. You're right. I mean, if it comes down to it, then I mean,
I'll say on the money too. There's some championship incentives in there. They really softened up the back end of the contract when they signed him in Philly.
Yes,
so it's not as much as it looks, but it is a few years, and it hurts flexibility. And the way they run the books in Boston, I don't see it because. You do have to balance it, though. Like, you know what I don't want to see is them to kick the TP the off season, because they need something now. The point of the TP was you're missing a player and you need to fill that spot.
If John Collins was gettable, but you knew you had to max him right when you got him, would you do it? Because that's kind of what it comes down to with Collins, right? The issue with him is Atlanta's thinking about dealing him because they have to max him and they don't want to. And it seems nobody wants to.
Then we're talking 4 maxes on the team, and you think about it. I mean, the talent's there. The defense isn't. They'd have to work around that, but I don't think that's enough to get them. Thompson and Teague. They probably.
I don't know. That. No, I mean, you're talking a lot of picks, and you're talking. You know, I'm not saying Thompson Teague. He's just Pritchard, Romeo, Smart, draft picks, whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you'd have
Theis.
Whatever's, it's just none of these are actual assets. I don't know that he's gettable, honestly.
I will say this: we came in this year saying, "Oh, the Celtics have nothing." You know, some teams. I talked to friends of other teams. People like Theis. Pritchard's become one. Semi's still not one, but he's on nothing now at this point.
They're not assets. Everybody's got one of those guys. You don't trade for them. That's what we keep talking about. Just because they're okay. You don't give anything of value for them because you've got a million guys on your roster, or you can find for nothing who can do the same thing. So they're not actual assets. You know, there are not a lot of assets unless it's, you know, a bunch of picks, or I don't know at this point. Or if Pritchard, I don't know if Pritchard would have been considered an asset if he kept playing this way. You know, Nesmith right now, it's hard to consider him an asset because he's done nothing. You know, there's really
with them too. You know?
None of the young players have flashed to the point that they are assets. There's not a single team out there that's looking and said, like, maybe I can get my hands on that Nesmith guy. Because there's no reason to there's no reason to believe it.
You couldn't get your hands on him. He's too far away from the court to ever get your hands on him. He's unreachable.
I think if it's anybody, well, it's Pritchard if it's anybody, clearly, because he's flashing something right now. He's cheap. He's on the rookie deal. Theis is probably a close second because he's cheap. you could re-sign him at a decent price probably, and he's a great center for the modern NBA. Although I'd hesitate to get rid of him now the way he's playing. Again, he looked more expendable a couple weeks ago. So I'm just saying that they're inching closer to having players. They're further along in terms of having assets, even if it's just a centimeter from where they started the year. They've played up guys and developed a little bit. Didn't expect Pritchard to be one clearly coming into this year. So even if it's just him, you're getting closer in that direction. So the next couple of weeks are going to be tough for this team. I believe it's Cleveland on Sunday, a couple road games. I think it's the Spurs and the Bulls. And then it's a West Coast swing right after that, after the Lakers, right before the end of the month. So the schedule gets tough here. If Pritchard's out a couple weeks, if Tatum's any delayed still in coming back, I know they've had to ease Rob into it. We don't know if Tatum was sick or if he had adverse effects. It looks like Rob had a tough time with this, and Tatum couldn't make the trip, so that might be a signal of something here, even though he's practicing.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough with this team and their depth, and this is like, I hope they address the shortcoming on the roster because it's so evident, that 4 spot. Do you fit in a third wing? Do you find a second big man? Someone asked, do you see something with Grant at the 4 right now? And Steven just kind of laughed. He was like, I'll tell you Tatum's starting there when he gets back.
Did he really?
Yeah, so they're just sticking Grant in there to get his 11 minutes in. He looks better next to Thompson than Theis did in that spot, but they still had to run double big throughout this game. And
yeah, immediately as soon as he came out at 4 minutes in, and they went double big because they were getting killed.
I will say,
what did Philly do with Grant? No joke. First 3 possessions, they just went right at him.
He is regressed in some type of way, and it's the position, I think. But he played some 4 last year, didn't he? He looked better than this.
I mean, what is he? You think Grant is better able to play the kind of small ball 4 over Semi?
No, I think he's a 5. Like that Clippers game in February last year where he closed the game. I think that's where he thrives. There's less of a need to do that now, though, because last year they just had Theis and Rob, who wasn't ready. And Grant was pretty much the third center.
Yeah.
He's never going to get center minutes now. Tough pick. And I don't want to kill him because there's some value to his chemistry and stuff in the room and that stuff like that. We forget that stuff mattered after 2019. So,
I know Bobby, you and I were both at that press conference.
We got sucked in.
But I mean, whether we got sucked in or not, it mattered. It was evident that they were so set on fixing the culture after the bad taste of Kyrie and Marcus and whatever. I'm not calling Marcus a bad citizen, but whatever they had the year before, 90% of it was on Kyrie. It was so obvious they wanted people in here who were good guys. So that mattered. If it mattered to the point that you opted for a guy because you valued his good guyness over talent, I think that's a mistake. I think most rookies coming in are going, unless they're real donkeys, are going to generally be positive because they're coming in and they're new and they're trying to grow. You're going to have some attitudes, but rather than worry about drafting just for character, just cross off guys who have questionable character, but then go get the most talented guy. I can't understand how they looked at Grant and thought that's the guy. I mean, I just can't understand it.
The only thing I can think of
I didn't understand it then, and every moment since I haven't understood it.
John,
I think they watched too much March Madness that year. Remember, it was the Carson Edwards show. Grant's Volunteers made a big run, and who was the other big March Madness? Oh, Tremont Waters. Like he was great at LSU that year into the tournament.
That would be.
No, that's what it felt
dereliction of duty. If all of your scouting amounted to watching as much college basketball as I do in a year,
yeah, it just went down. Well,
you just turn on the TV in March for a few hours, then you might need a different scouting department.
Was the best. His bracket was better than mine. So let me look at the teams he picked and pick a player from that one of those teams.
No, remember that was the year of Carson Edwards. He was like the star of the tournament.
Dude, I'll never forget that game, that Purdue game. I think went into multiple overtimes, I think, and Carson Edwards had like 40 I'm making up numbers, but it was like he was hitting every shot. They still lost the game. and I think I lost a ton, or maybe they won the game and I just lost a ton of money, and it was because of Carson Edwards.
It was
I just
against
know that.
Zion, right? Didn't they draw Duke and they gave him a good run? And so I don't remember the exact because nothing
All I
matters before
remember is
2020 now.
I'll never forget this. I was at Loco in South Boston. It was very late. It was a long day, and I was tapped out, and it ended with me losing a lot of money. It was one of those nights. I think I was politely asked to leave the bar at some point that night, but besides the point.
We're gonna talk about that draft for a long time. It was a tough one for where the team was. It was Hayward's last year, and Grant was the best of all those picks. He had a decent year last year, and if that's the only good year they get out of him, for where'd they pick him? 20s. We always talk about whatever you get there is what you get. The tough one's
Right.
Romeo. And we haven't mentioned him yet tonight. Is there a chance that he can come back? I think he's on the road trip. He's shooting with the team.
I've been holding out hope. I have an irrational level of like optimism / desperation for Romeo to turn into something. I desperately I want the narrative to be that he was injured in college, never got his footing underneath him last year, could never get enough momentum to get it going.
There's hope.
And that's the reason it was so bad. But like the one thing about him last year that we saw during that little stretch in the bubble where he did contribute sometimes, and we're starting to wonder, can he do it, was how good he was defensively. And that alone would make a huge difference if he can get his H out of his A offensively a little bit and figure out what he's supposed to be doing out there.
He shot decent, because it was always the zeros, though, if you remember.
The key to minutes here is be able to handle your end on defense. He can do that. But that's not what you drafted him 14th for. You drafted him to be able to be a scorer. If he can score even a little, massive upgrade at the wing position right now for what they need from athleticism, from defense, from fit. You need him to be okay. I'm hoping only because there is no other option on the roster, not necessarily because I have faith in the player themselves, but that's their best hope, that a guy you're not counting on anything from comes up and all of a sudden is a revelation or a surprise. And you're like, okay, that's what we needed. A little bit of that would go a long way. He doesn't have to be a star. He just has to be playable, basically.
Do you believe, Jimmy?
Just play.
Yeah. Do you believe it, Jimmy?
In Romeo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You believe that it's possible that you might get something out of him?
Yes. Yes and no, to be honest. I don't really have.
I don't know. I don't love him.
I'm honestly I'm hanging on to a few, like, not many, but a couple instances where he had a couple of good, like, I don't even want to say games, but like moments.
The Lakers game in LA was the one.
Okay, like that. I believe you. I couldn't go back and say that was the one, but I can remember stretches where it's like, all right, this guy looks like he belongs out on the court right now. It's just been health with him. He started out behind because he was hurt when in his career started, and he's never seemed like to really be able to put together like consistent playing time, get into the rotation and stay there. It's always been a story whenever he's done anything. And so to me, that tells me that he hasn't really proven that he's somebody that you can count on yet. Because if it's always a story whenever you do something, then that it's good, I guess, in one sense that you're being talked about, but it's bad that it's like we aren't expecting this yet. You know what I mean? So talk to me when it's not a story, when he goes out there and like just does his thing, and then I'll tell you that I can depend on him. I'm not there yet because I haven't seen enough. I'm not giving up on him, just like I'm not giving up on Neesmith, obviously. I mean, the guy hasn't even had a chance. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know where he is health-wise. I mean, the only updates I get are the tweets that say he's out. I have no idea where he is health-wise.
So he's moving along a little bit, but we still don't have a good idea because they haven't announced rejoining practice or doing whatever. He's doing some light shooting, and he's.
What I mean,
yeah.
So
I think February.
The hell no.
But mid-February.
That was the rough target. I'd love to get an actual update, though.
I think they asked Brad in the last week and he didn't have anything. He's just shooting. So Not
and I
close.
think, honestly, my expectations are like role player at best, at least for this year. I mean, I'm not expecting him to like slide into the starting lineup and be
But that
somebody.
would be, they're not asking for a lot. That's the point. If he could give a little bit, it's more than what they have there.
That's what I'm saying. Just a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
And
Listen, guys, they have stars. They don't need stars right now. They need depth.
You need not Grant Williams. Right?
That's a little mean, but
I mean, it is.
I'm not giving up on Grant Williams either. I think Grant Williams is a smart player. I think
these are all young guys. Yeah,
they're all young guys. I will say this though, it's not working right now, and maybe it's just maybe Grant is not supposed to be with that starting unit. Obviously, right? He's not a starter on this team. But maybe Brad can figure out a way to make it work with certain players at certain points, giving guys this, certain guys a rest. I don't know. I'm not the coach. I don't get paid for that. I'm not giving up on Grant Williams either. But I will say, I do get frustrated at times watching him play basketball.
I think John just sent that message.
Which one?
I didn't see
Grant is what he is. You just want to slip that in while Jimmy was talking without interrupting him.
No,
I agree completely. I mean, I think Grant is what he is, but I don't. I also think he's better than maybe what we've seen at points. So,
and I'm not freaking out about the bench. The bench has been better than expected.
It has.
Between Pritchard's emergence, we talk semis improvement. Green's been great, so they're getting by. And in fact, many of these games, shifting Brown, Kemba, and Tatum in with the bench has made the bench better than what the starters are giving them, especially when you go from double big to one big. So it's all about rotations, finding the right sets, combinations, all that stuff. And once Tatum gets back, the bench will be even less important. But you do want to find a fifth man in the lineup somewhere. The reason I bring up Romeo, and it's so easy to forget him because he's just been so invisible through all the injuries. You even forget he's on the team this year.
Yep.
But he's going to become available before a trade does. Like the tough thing about a trade this year is 10 teams are making the playoffs in each conference.
Yep.
They push back the deadline a little bit. I think it's late March, but that might not be enough to counteract that.
I agree. Market. I do think people are unrealistically holding out hope that some trade the Celtics can pull off is going to save them. And it's not. It's not.
I don't know if they need to be saved, right?
Point,
I mean, do they need to be saved?
They're going to make a trade. They have to. If they don't make a trade by the deadline,
we're going to somebody who you're going to kind of be like, I guess it's better than nothing. That's it.
That's it. And that's what we said was going to happen this whole time.
There is no big move out there that's going to get you a guy who's going to be, whoa, now we've got Kemba, Tatum, Brown, and this guy. You're not going to be mentioning him in the breath with those guys. It's going to be something else.
Right. It's going to be, oh, good, they've got some bench depth.
Oh, yeah, he can help.
That Batum one's bothering me now.
It's also, like, and you hope not, but we just saw what happened to Pritchard tonight, and this is why I said last show, you don't make a trade now for a need when you have no idea what your team's going to look like in 2 months from now or right before the deadline, for example, or whatever, because you don't know who's coming and going with injuries and which guys step up and which guys take a step back, like a Grant.
They could go on a roll here once Tatum gets back, yeah.
Sure, they could, and you want to have a clear idea of what your team looks like at the latest point that you possibly can, if your goal is to improve for the playoff run. I mean, and that's the whole. I imagine that's the whole purpose, right? So we're talking about possible guys, trades, whatever. It's not going to happen right now.
No,
it's not going to happen right now.
I wouldn't expect anything before March 1st.
When's the deadline?
I think the deadline's March 25th or so, give or take a few days.
March 1st is way too early then.
The only way there's a splash is if somehow Kemba is involved, and I don't see that as a possibility. Beyond that, you're looking at something usable. That's about it.
We already talked about it, but I'm not trading Kemba. I think you're selling.
I'm not saying you are. I'm saying the only way to do something splashy is that. I don't think they'll. Sure. It is. I mean, we're well past the point of someone calling and saying Jaylen or Jason. It's an automatic hang up. Right now, they might be, in terms of NBA assets, they might be 2 of the top 5 assets in the league based on their years and the fact based on their
They're
age.
not assets anymore.
I'm not assets. I'm saying assets
they're
meaning
untradeable.
Untradeable, like they're the most valuable pieces because of their age and their ability and the fact that they're under contract. They are untouchable to a point that there's almost nobody you would even listen to the other name. There's maybe 2 names on the planet that you might even not hang up immediately and never take the guy's call again.
No, that's right.
They're so far gone. The drop to the next level of who you're trading is only name is possible is Kemba, and then after that it becomes Smart and whatever, and that's it. So there's not the chance of something splashy is almost zero.
And that's another reason why Danny Ainge and Mike Zarin, they're not looking at this team as a win now team. They know what they have. They know that these 2 guys are cornerstone pieces, and they have them under contract for the foreseeable future here. They're only going to get better. And at some point, you have to imagine guys, older veterans or whatever, are going to want to, again, come to the Celtics, whether it's buyouts or, take some sort of discount to win. And like Danny Ainge isn't going to do anything to screw the financial situation of the team in the long run, or make them shoot for a championship now when there's such a big window.
That's an interesting one there. I've talked a little bit about injured guys and how they
Jonathan Isaac.
They potentially valuable because they're nothing now, but
because they're nothing now and something later. I'm actually I would favor that for something down the road as opposed to something less for now.
Yeah,
I would. And I've thought about that one too.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Gordon there, but Isaac is someone a lot of Celtics fans have had their eyes on for a while for obvious reasons. He's right up their alley for the system. He had a tough injury. I think it was an ACL, so he'll be a year out or so, and that was on top of another injury he had before that. So he's had issues with that.
Yeah.
But look across the league right now. There's lots of possibilities, but not a lot of teams are even approaching a position where they're going to start dumping guys or selling for the future. You think Houston, Orlando's in a tough spot right now, but there aren't that many. But we're talking trades. I do have to throw in the plug. Keith Smith was on Celtics Beat. Talked a lot about all these things we throw around with Danny and how they take calls, and is he not aggressive enough, or does he drive too hard of a bargain? That was a pretty good episode they had on there today to check out.
Another thing I'll say, and again, just pumping one of our podcasts here, the Gary Washburn was on with Sherrod the other day, and we were talking about that window where like this notion of not needing to win now versus later. That there's a yes and a no behind that. You can't kick the can. No? You can't kick the can.
We don't need a win.
No, you can't kick the can too far down the road with stars like Jaylen.
No, Celtics fans do that.
With Jaylen and Jason just because they're young, because eventually they're going to be like, dudes, you're starting to waste my prime now.
When it's going to end.
You never know when it's going to end. So you know what you have. You can't go too far with it.
This is our Hayward conversation.
I'm just saying he's not going to mortgage the future and like panic move at the deadline because he feels he needs to win now. Which feels like that's kind of like where the Nets were, what the Nets kind of. I'm not saying the Nets panicked, but like obviously they traded some players, or at least a guy like LeVert, for somebody like Harden, which is definitely more of a win now. Harden's on a 2-year deal or whatever he's got, so. I feel like a move they did, I don't see the Celtics doing something like that, which is why they didn't, right? I mean, there were people who were saying, believe it or not, they wanted to trade for Harden, and I just don't think. Well, obviously I know now, but I didn't think at the time that was something the Celtics would be interested in because they feel like they have a really good long-term future here. I'm not saying that they don't want to win now. I'm just saying they're not going to do anything crazy, like a crazy splash, like we were talking about, John. Like you're not going to get a crazy trade, at least this season. Who knows what's going to happen in the offseason? Things change, but right now I don't see that.
Yeah.
At some point they'll have to use the TP though. If that, I remember the Warriors got one for Iguodala, I believe, and that was a big deal in Golden State, and they just let it expire. And again, they stunk. They didn't need to use it the following year because they were one of the worst teams in the league. So there's a different context there. But sometimes that TP just does expire and you don't find the deal. And, but you get a 28,
I don't
you
want
get a 28 million one though.
Yeah.
You can't let that go. Yeah. You have to use it at some point.
All right, we gotta pay some bills. So we're gonna tell you again about our sponsor, Manscaped. Manscaped. It's the best in men's below the waist grooming. Everybody knows that. There's 2 million people out there who trust it right now. Many of them who work for our network. Spoiler alert, you got to take care of business down there. The pandemic's going to end at some point, guys. You can't just run out there with whatever's been working for you during this. So you got to get the perfect package 3.0. It's a below the waist grooming package to start off the new year strong. Okay. You got to come out of quarantine at your best. So
you don't want to be going out there looking like Teen Wolf. You're at the
can't do it.
Down and, people think it's like a full moon or something. You
got
to be ready to go.
Sweatpants and whatever else is going on down there, it's not going to work. Okay. You gotta step up your game a little bit. So we're looking at the lawnmower. That's the goods 3.0. Beyond that, we have a shed travel bag. You can store all of your goodies in there. There's deodorant. There's spray. There's powder. I mean, there's no more
powder. Is there powder?
Yeah.
Powder?
Oh, the crop reviver. That's spray. We got spray.
Oh, whoops.
Oh no, and crop preserver. It's a deodorant and a moisturizer. There's a lot. There's a lot in this package.
There's a whole thing. Powder is an underrated move for guys out there who've never used it before. Give it a shot. But definitely manscaped.com is a place where you can at least get started. It's one of those, this is what I say. If you're like trying to get in the stock market, but you don't know what stocks to buy, you just go for like an ETF fund. That's like just going for the Manscaped, just go for the manscaped.com. You can guarantee you're going to make, a little profit there for the most part. And, you get your feet wet into that whole game and you'll feel good about it. You know what I mean?
And you can get wet because it's waterproof.
What's that, Bob?
You can get wet because it's waterproof. Bring it right in the shower. I got the 2.0.
Oh, thanks for that visual. That was something that we were all asking for.
You gotta sell it. You gotta use your experience and bring it to the people.
Yeah. So it's the code is beat 20.
Yeah, it's interesting.
No. I take it back. 20. Press past 20.
I was thinking that. Yeah, it is press past 20.
Press past 20. That's the code. I put something on the screen that said beat earlier. It's press past 20. Press past 20 gets you 20% off. All of that stuff, including you get boxers with it. Shed travel bag. Once again, Manscaped bringing sexy back in 2021. So make sure you do that, guys. Final thoughts before we wrap it. We got Cleveland coming in on Sunday.
Oh, I'm excited for that game. That game is gonna be such a thriller. I'm so excited to watch the Cavs. And people look at the Cavs this year and say, "Oh, the Cavs, they haven't been anything since LeBron left." But Colin Sexton is one of the fastest rising young guard stars in the league. He's going to be another challenge for Marcus Smart. Can Marcus Smart stop a shifty, quick guard who has scoring capabilities off the dribble? He just dropped 42 on Brooklyn on Wednesday. I don't know how much he had tonight. Drummond comes in. Thompson's going to have to contend with him. He's been awesome this year. You have Jared Allen, who's been a Celtics killer in the past. And my favorite rookie, Isaac Okoro, who, if I wanted the Celtics to move up for anybody, it would have been that guy. He's having a good start for them as well. So that team's going to be tough on Sunday. They're going to be incredibly tough. I also heard that game moved from 4 to 7 because the Patriots aren't playing. So it'll be a little later.
Are not?
Yeah, they're not playing. They were going to do a 4 for champion.
I think we've known the Patriots weren't going to be playing this weekend for quite some time.
But they just moved the game. It was 4 and now it's 7.
We knew the Pats weren't playing as soon as Brady was like, "Yeah, I'm out." We were like, "All right, well, the Pats aren't playing. You can put the game at any time." That being said, I will be watching. Wait, I'm watching Brady on Sunday, so I don't know what time the Celtics game is, but
7.
If it's the same time as the Bucks game, I'll jump on this call, but I'm not gonna know shit about the game. I am all about.
I'll fill you in. I think I'm going, so I'll fill in the details from the Garden.
You're going? Okay.
Possibly.
Let's. I did not know what time that game was. I didn't realize it got moved.
Change, yeah.
It is
7.
8. No, 7
8 now. No, I think it's 7.
Just 7 o'clock. Okay, and Brady's at 6:30.
8:30.
No, they're at 3:05. Jimmy, you go roll right into it. It's the Chiefs. The Chiefs is a late game.
And what time's that? 6:30.
6:40. Yeah,
we're good. Then we're good.
Perfect.
All right.
I'll just watch TV all day.
Oh, so that maybe they moved it so people can watch Brady.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up then.
My thought is,
yeah.
Margarita Fridays. Let's make this a thing. All right.
No, but make sure people know that, because I know on the schedules a lot of places it still says 4. I think it's a 7 o'clock tip. They just
7 o'clock it is. All right, let's wrap it up for Margarita Fridays. Jimmy has decreed it. So
in Margarita Fridays, Bobby's still talking about the time of Sunday's game. I don't know why, but he's still. Anything else about the time of the game? People aren't idiots. They can figure out what time the game is, Bob.
No, not everything changed. I'm just making sure they can find the show that night. They're not coming on at 6:30 wondering what's going on here.
That's true. We'll tweet it. If you don't follow us on Twitter, you should. Jimmy_Toscano. Bobby, I don't want to get yours wrong. What's yours?
Real Bob Manning.
Not to be confused with the fake Bob Manning.
Yeah.
Sean, you're on Twitter. What's your Twitter?
I forget.
Yeah, he's on Twitter. I'll just retweet him if you guys want to know his Twitter. My final thought is Tatum going to play Sunday? Do we have an idea?
Feels like it.
I'm excited for Sunday. I don't really give a shit about the Cavs. I know Bobby just talked about it for 45 minutes. They are who they are.
You'll be surprised.
I do like Sexton. I like that. It goes back to that highlight of him in college where he just stared down the kid at the free throw line. That's when I was like, I like this kid Sexton. People forget about that video, but it's the same kid. You remember that?
Yeah, and the Kyrie trade. He was the Nets pick that the Celtics traded.
I like Sexton. He's a little. I'm not sure. No, he kind of came out of nowhere. A lot of people were kind of down on him after last season, but
he had a rough few years. Yeah,
maybe he's turning it around, which is great. Cleveland, they deserve, I guess, some sort of something to do in Cleveland. I don't know what else goes on there. Certainly not the Browns anymore.
Sweep the Nets. Number 2
my
defense.
My final thought is I'm excited for Tatum's return, and Jaylen Brown just continues to impress me. I know the Celtics lost tonight and he lost Wednesday. Jaylen Brown was I just was on Twitter. He was pretty hard on himself after the game. Pickles for Jaylen Brown was pretty hard on himself tonight after the game, saying he needs to do more on defense. I'm not sure how true that is. I think he's doing like as much as he can. I mean, he can only do so much. But it's good to hear him say something like that. He does. That's something a leader does say. He doesn't put blame on any other players. He puts
Jaylen
Brown. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just I'm happy to see his growth this year on the court, and he's already growing off the court. So I don't really.
That's a good one, Bobby, for you.
He said he wants to become villainous defensively, I think was the word he used. And I've been calling out that defense all year. I thought this team had the potential to be the best defense in the league between Thompson and Smart and all the personnel they have. And they'll be better when Tatum gets back. And this goes into the trade conversation we just talked about forever. But I want to see this team battle defensively. So they got killed by the Knicks on Sunday. I think Knicks are 3rd in defensive rating or top 10. Something like that. Yeah, they're 3rd to start the year. Cavs are 2. So if the shots aren't falling, if they're getting down on themselves, if fouls become another issue that they're frustrated with, don't get pulled out of a game again here, dragged out late in the 4th quarter. We all know what happened against the Knicks there when the shots weren't falling. They just kept jacking more, getting more frustrated, forgetting about the defensive end, rebounds, all that stuff. It's great that they're killing it on offense, and they are. I love what Brown's doing and all the rest. Smart's been good. But this team's not going to have an upside if they don't get it together defensively. It's going to take time. We talk about the entire league struggling on the defensive side of the ball. But look at Philly. They haven't been great offensively. Tonight they were much better than they were Wednesday. Yeah. But they play defense. They rebound. Dwight seals up those boards on the defensive end. And that's why they've been better. Celtics, they're hitting a ton of shots to start this year. So that's why they're 2nd in the East, 3rd in the East now. But they got to defend at some point.
My final thought, we talked about this a bit at the beginning of the year, how this was going to have to be a team that revolved around stars because they lost depth by losing Hayward. We didn't know if Kemba would be back, and what we were talking about was whether Tatum and Brown can make a leap into a next level. Brown's made it already. We talked about the top 100 list, which is extremely arbitrary, but the top 100 lists prior to the year have Brown listed in the 30s and 40s. He's already a top 15 player in the NBA right today, and he's done it in 15 games. Okay,
and we said that was too high.
Yes, and so we actually thought he was shortchanged a little bit on those lists. But what I'm going to say now is, again, maybe I overreact to the positive and the negative. It is what it is. But I'm ready today to say that there's not. And again, I know there's super teams out there, and you have LeBron and Davis, and you got the big three in Brooklyn right now. But in terms of having two players right now, given everything and their age and their salaries and their situation, it's the best tandem in the league. And I can't. I don't know that you can argue.
Best in the league?
Huh?
Best in the league?
Best tandem in terms of future. Everything. Their age, their contracts, and how long you're going to have them for. I don't know that I would. I wouldn't swap these two for any other two right now.
I stay up later than you, John. Huh? I catch those Lakers games. I stay up a little.
I understand that, but I'm not giving up. I'm not trading anything for friggin' 36-year-old LeBron. I'm sorry,
Would you trade right now Tatum and Brown for Davis and LeBron?
No.
It's a tough call. I don't know.
And I know that saying that LeBron is the best player who's ever played.
It's that question of what's the value of one championship? And LA already has one. We don't know if Brown and Tatum are ever going to
The under 25 stars are the most valuable commodities in the league, and you have two of them playing at very close to a top 10 NBA level. That is an unbeatable combination at this age and this stage in their careers, and they keep showing you. And I don't even think Tatum's really shown much. Tatum's been fairly flat this year. I don't even know where Jaylen's ceiling is at this point. So that's my vibe here is if it is a superstars league, the question was always, are these guys true top level superstars that you win just with them? The answer might be yes. And so then the rest of it doesn't matter nearly as much. Well, you can lament Grant Williams, this and that in other teams, but if you get to the point where people are just going to there might be a stage where Boston dominates a buyout market because people are just I want to go there and play with those superstars right now because that's my shot. That's possible. That's possible in a year or two. Right. So it might not be this year, but I don't even know at this point. You're telling me 2 years from now this isn't going to be the best overall tandem in basketball? It's hard to imagine that it isn't. So. If that's the case and their ceiling really is top 10 NBA players and you've got them locked under contract for the next 5 years, you're doing pretty well, and a lot of things can fall in behind that.
I'm not going to knock you for wanting that situation. I like watching those players. I like following those players, and they're just a lot more likable than Davis and LeBron from our perspectives. But it's that conversation we just had, now or later. The Lakers are heavy, heavy, heavy favorites to win the title this year, back-to-back championships. That's tough to pass up right now.
It's a good point. I mean, what about this isn't what John wanted to do. He didn't want us to go through every team, but what about Kawhi and Paul George? You would.
It's not even close anymore.
No, that one's no. Tatum Brown all day.
No, I mean, it's a good point because I'm going through teams and I'm like, well, you got Lillard and McCollum. I mean, I'm going.
No, I think you're right for everyone except LA. It's tough to look at LA's duo that just rolled through the playoffs.
No, I mean, it's tough to look at Kyrie and Durant, honestly. That's the hardest one because they also have Kyrie who's not he's 27, 28, and Durant, again, he's 32. That one's a much harder one to say, especially if you want to factor Harden in. Picking any two of those, that's actually the toughest one.
Yeah, in terms of trade, though, I'd say no in that spot.
I have one that you forgot. Siakam, and just take your pick.
Poor Toronto. They'll get back. They're tough. They're already rallying.
No, John, it's a good point. I think I understand where John's coming from, but I also understand where Bobby's coming from, and I've always been like, you you want to win. You don't want to sacrifice potential wins for wins that you think you can
The
definitely.
Lakers are really good to start this year. It is unbelievable how good they look, and they're starting. They destroyed the Bucks last night. They're 7-0 on the road. LeBron and Davis are locked in.
Hey, look, they're going to win the title. I mean, they're going to go to the finals. I mean, Bobby, look, I said it at the beginning of the year. I think they're way better than last year. And
Yeah.
I think Bobby said they were worse.
Bobby said they were worse. This is before they played a game. I said this team's way better than last year.
I'll do an apology cam on that one.
Yeah,
so you don't have to sell me on the Lakers. And I'm not saying this in an I told you so way either. You don't have to sell me on the Lakers. LeBron's LeBron and Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis. I'm simply saying at this point with their age going forward, I'd rather be in this position with these two guys than anybody else because you're not talking about this year. I don't know that this is a championship year, but you do need to start filling in some holes. I just think it becomes easier with these guys because they'll eventually be the two people you point to and say, that's the team I want to go to and play with those stars, you know? And we didn't know whether they were going to ascend to that level of stardom or not, or whether they'd be kind of in the 15 to 25 range, which there are other guys like that, you know, like Murray and, you know, Jamal Murray. I mean, you can make a case for Murray and Jokic. You can make a case for Booker. I mean, now they got Chris Paul. There's other players. There's a lot of really good players out there,
Right.
but these guys might be their all around game at the positions that they play. Wing, which is the most valuable position, to have two of them at this level. I don't know that you can beat that.
Yeah, don't take it for granted. What we're watching right now between those two is really special, and you hope it's going to last 10 to 15 years from now. But you got to just enjoy it today while we have it every single day. I know Kevin.
And that's why I don't want to wait too long on filling things out around them because you want them to be happy. You want them to be here. You want to always be thinking about winning. So
I'll say this. They played LA tough last year. They destroyed them in the Garden. They played them so tough on the road during that Kobe week. That's coming up a year ago. Next week is the Kobe week. They're coming to the Garden on the 30th. That is going to be a fun game to watch if the Celtics are fully loaded. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah. All right, guys, we said we're going to wrap it, so we will. We're back on Sunday after Tom Brady. Are we rooting for Brady, Jimmy? Of course you are.
Dude, I'll die for Brady right now. Just tell me how and where and when. So I'm rooting for Brady. I've been on the Brady train since day one. Don't get me started. I'm not going to go into it, but
I'm rooting for Brady now, so you can relax. Bobby, rooting for Brady.
I'm all in. I always liked the Buccaneers. That was always my NFC team, so it was a match made in heaven when those two came together. Don't ask me why. I just like the jerseys growing up.
I like the creamsicles growing up, but I'm
wait, John. This is developing. You're now rooting for Brady. What changed?
It's
the
strange.
Brought back Patricia today. It's like, what are they doing?
You can't. You might decide something, and then as you're watching it, your feelings just sort of change. But I think two things for me with Brady. I like Aaron. I don't like Aaron. I hate Aaron Rodgers. But two, I can't deal with idiots having another who's the greatest debate if Rodgers happens to win this game. It'll make my freaking head explode. This is an argument that's been over for 5 years. It's been over for 10 years, but it's really been over.
So this is about Brady Rodgers for you.
I don't want to listen to the who's the greatest quarterback. It shouldn't come up every year. Brady's 43 years old and the debate's been over for a freaking decade.
Oh yeah, it's no debate.
But everyone's going to be like, "Oh, is Rod?" There's still a faction of people out there who think Rodgers is the greatest. And I
live in Wisconsin.
I can't listen to it anymore. So you need a win to never have to listen to it.
So that's fair. To me, Brady's already proven that he's the GOAT, 4 different, 5 different, 10 different times. He doesn't even need to win. He doesn't need to win to prove that anymore. But I would just love another feather in the cap. I would just love another Brady goes.
It's a better story.
He goes to the NFC and he just takes over the NFC just like that after 20 years in the AFC. Like,
it's
completely. It's unbelievable to even be in the NFC Championship game is a crazy accomplishment. These guys had no offseason.
Tough conference, tough division. They had to go to New Orleans.
No offseason.
Brady gets there as easily as like I get to the bathroom in the morning. Like that's
guys.
He just goes to conference championship games.
You're showing the potential of the Jimmy John podcast right now. I can see it right in front of me.
The other thing is, the last thing I'll say is this: like Brady's 43. Like I'm 30, or is he 43? Right? I'm 30.
43. Wow.
I'm 33, and I know I look a lot younger than that. But if I was playing in the football all growing up, high school, college, and then I was in the NFL for 10 years at this stage of my life, I don't know how I could fathom playing another 10 years and being at the top of my game. Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, it's something that's never been done before, literally never been done before, to be playing at this stage and at this level. And people still want to hate on him. That's what I can't believe people just refuse to acknowledge greatness and refuse to appreciate it and enjoy it. And the same goes with LeBron James. People want to spend all their energy hating on LeBron James. This is a once in a generation, maybe even once in a lifetime type player. And people want to spend all their energy hating on him instead of just enjoying what he does and what he's capable of. And like that's how I feel about Brady.
Yeah. You know what taught that to me was Isaiah. We thought Isaiah was just going to keep going and going and going, and it was just such a flash in the pan. And you look back and you're like, wow, I'm glad I enjoyed all those moments. Not quite the same exact thing, but that's what makes me feel good.
Mac, you mean Ziggy? That's not his stepson. That's his actual son. It's a wire reference. It's a wire reference.
What a show! What a show tonight. Make sure you get the podcast version. clnsmedia.com/gr. Easy.
Yeah.
Go get yourself the podcast
version.
If
you jumped on halfway through and you're, going for a drive tomorrow, pop on the podcast.
Yeah, podcast is always good. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get alerted when we go live. A lot of you guys already, I'm sure, are, but tell your friends about it. We like having you guys in the chat. It's always fun. Keeping it light. It's a good crew. We like interacting with you guys. The comments are terrific. And thanks for hanging out with us on a Friday, Margarita Friday. We're back on Sunday night. So we will chat with you then. As always, Jimmy Toscano, Bobby Manning, John Zanis. We will have Josue Pavone back on Sunday. We're confident of that. Everyone out there concerned about Josue.
He's missing a lot of games.
He'll be back.
I think he's on a Tinder date, which is fine.
Yeah, we can't have perfect attendance. Jimmy even said he might take one off. That means Nick, he's out there right now. We're calling on you, buddy.
Speaking of unsigned free agents and TPEs, I think I might miss Monday's game. I'm just gonna say that right now.
No, Nico is his nephew. Nick is the nephew.
Am I gonna have to Google The Wire now? Because
season 2 of The Wire. It's the one with the Greeks. So obviously I've seen it, but I've actually seen The Wire start to finish probably 11 times. Yeah. Season 2, the docs.
I'm actually gonna shave, so if I look like somebody, maybe I'll look a little different on Sunday.
Yeah.
Not fully shaved. I would love Manscaped to maybe swoop in and help out with that, but
shave it up. Yeah.
All right. Well, gonna trim the beard a little bit.
How can these guys miss us if we won't say goodbye? We're gonna wrap it, guys. We'll see you guys.